Hello friends, Klaige back with another video, and earlier this week I asked both in my YouTube community section and on Twitter for people to toss up some questions, whether it be about Anji or Guilty Gear in general, or just some maybe like small in-game stuff for stuff that I could do a Q&A video on, stuff that really may not warrant an entire video on its own, but stuff that people would be interested in, whether it's, you know, specifically about the character or my specific opinions or inputs on things. So I've gathered up a decent amount of these, and I'm gonna try and go through them. I haven't really rehearsed or thought too hard about answers to these questions because I want this to feel more natural and off the cuff as opposed to me like going through and outlining an essay for how I would answer these questions. I feel like that's kind of forced and doesn't really give a fair answer. This is more of a, you know, if you saw me in a tournament and wanted to know my opinion on something, you wouldn't ask me a question and then I would sit there and take notes, you know what I mean? So, gonna go through these. If you end up liking this kind of video, if this seems like something worthwhile, I'll definitely consider doing more of these in the future. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, let's just, let's rattle through these. So, first one I have is, have you ever had the urge to switch to a top tier or stronger character? And if so, how did you handle it? So, and I'm sure the basis of this question comes to the fact that it's pretty universally agreed that right now Anji feels like one of the weaker characters, if maybe not the weakest character in Strive overall. I've gone a lot over his flaws and the things that I feel are a big hole in his game plan. So, to answer, have I ever considered switching to a top tier or stronger character? Not only have I considered doing it, I've done it a couple times in Guilty Gear. In the early days, XX and Reload, Anji was terrible. Like, bottom 2, bottom 3 character in both games. Absolutely terrible. And those games are grimy. Really, really oppressive offense. Crazy damage. Like, games that would not last a month in the modern fighting game community because people would just be like, this game is horse shit. There is no way I'm taking this seriously. And Anji was not good in those games, despite having his own grimy things, because, I mean, the early XX games are, they're a wild ride. In Reload, I had been playing Anji for about a year and a half at that point, and I just felt so hamstrung and felt like there were so many matchups that felt impossible. So I actually ended up switching to Venom for the last, like, half year of Reload's life, and played him almost exclusively until Slash came out. And Venom wasn't even, like, top tier in Reload. He was just a very competent character, could scrap with most anybody. So that was a time I actually did just stop playing Anji. And that's pretty early in my playing competitive fighting game career, so to quote-unquote. Career, says the guy who's never actually won more than, what, $100 over the years in tournaments? Ha. But I did switch back then, and in the first week of Strive release, I actually played Soul for a couple days. The switch to this new version of Anji, for someone who's played him as long as I have, and when I have spent like 300 hours playing plus R since the rollback netcode patch hit, it was jarring. The character felt just completely linear, completely unfun. A lot of the things that made me fall in love with playing Anji in the first place were either not here or were so changed or felt so weak that they didn't feel satisfying to use. And after a couple days of playing Soul, I'm like, you waited 8 years to get your character back. Just go play him, see if you can make it work, see if it starts feeling fun. Because if Anji doesn't make this game fun for me, I knew I was not going to have fun with Strive. Like, there's no way. Like, I could go into a long diatribe about how important Anji and Guilty Gear are in my life, and maybe that'll be a separate video. But if I couldn't have fun playing Anji and Strive, I was not going to have fun playing Strive. And thankfully, after a couple days of breaking all my mindset and habits of playing Anji in older games, I got comfortable with him again. I got comfortable with understanding what his risk-reward is, that he relies on a lot of reads. And so I did start eventually feeling better about playing him in this game and having fun, and I haven't played anyone else since. Basically, since about like day 4 of Strive release, I've played exclusively Anji. Maybe dabbling with a couple other characters in training mode just to better understand some options they have, but that's about it. So I have definitely felt the urge to switch to a better character. In games that aren't Guilty Gear, I have universally played strong characters, because I started out playing competitive fighting games, playing Anji in the old games, where he was very weak and very not competitive in a lot of aspects, so I've never wanted to go through that again, personally, so I tend to gravitate towards very strong characters in other games. Not necessarily purely top tier, but characters who are effective and kind of easy to pick up, especially if it's a game I'm not familiar with. So, yeah, that kind of answers that. Another question I got that kind of follows in the same vein was, do I think Anji is so weak that you can't win even at lower levels? And my answer to that is absolutely not. He can win at the highest level. Lost Soul has already proven that, winning a tournament. We haven't seen a lot of Anji in top 8s or anything, but I think that's partially due to just sheer law of averages. There are not very many people playing Anji competitively at high level. Most people are either dabbling with him and playing online and not entering tournaments, or are playing characters that right now feel more complete. But I think Anji can fight any character in this game, and I think an Anji player who's especially on their game on a given day can beat anyone in this game. The big thing is, overall, like long run, I don't think Anji is going to have sustained success. You might get a tournament where, you know, a really strong player, a Lost Soul, a Kid Viper, a GC Yoshi, etc., go on a hell of a run and get a top 8 or even win, right? But I think Anji's ceiling as he is very low. I think the character is getting mostly found out. His holes and the things you can exploit in his game plan are becoming more and more obvious. I mean, I personally moved that forward by releasing the Fujin guide and showing just how bad the Fujin follow-ups are. So I think the thing is, with Anji, you can definitely win at any level. Low, medium, extremely high level. You can win any game or any matchup. But to win at the higher levels, you're going to have to consistently both outplay and outread your opponent. And, like, you know, it's really easy to say, it's like, yeah, you can win with Anji, you just have to make really good reads and you have to be willing to bet on them. And it's like, that's true, but you could also play Soul or Ram and make some pretty good reads and have a much easier time, because you're limiting your opponent's options so much further, if that makes sense. So I don't think Anji is unplayable by any stretch of the imagination. He's not unplayable. You can win with him at any level. I think at lower levels, especially, he's probably a lot easier to win with. Players who are newer to the game, or maybe are not super into playing fighting games at the competitive level, are going to get very easily flustered by Fujin follow-ups. They're going to get very easily flustered by auto guard. They're going to get very, very flustered by Ko, because new players like to be in the air a lot. Jumping is a very easy feeling thing to do, so a lot of new players do that, and Ko can absolutely eat that up. So no, I think Anji is perfectly viable at every level, and you know, lower level, yes, you can definitely win. Not even a question. Next one. Do I feel Strive is a good entry point to the series? And I would say yes. I think Strive is an excellent entry point to the series, but maybe not for the reasons you might think. The first thing, the reason Strive is a great entry point to the series, is that it has a fantastic netcode built into it. The lobby system has problems, as we all know, and the load times to the servers have problems, but when you're actually in a game playing, the netcode is elite. Absolutely top-tier netcode. And that alone makes it a good entry point, because you don't have to rely on having a local scene to learn about matchups and playing people and all that good stuff. So that alone is worth its weight in gold. I do think that there's definitely less over-the-top complex system mechanics overall to learn in Strive compared to, say, the XX series or the Xrd series. But I also think that a lot of the buzz around Strive was the idea that it was going to be much more simplified so newer players could catch on easier. And they were going to trim a lot of the very archaic, very hard to understand system mechanics that come with a lot of scary math behind it, and a lot of, well, you got to know this, and this variable to even begin to understand why this works. Like, they have trimmed a lot of that out. I will freely admit, a lot of that stuff is gone, but also I strongly feel that the whole concept of making it quote-unquote more approachable for beginners, I don't think that's a very accurate statement for what Strive is. I think you replace that statement with make the game anti-legacy. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what feels like the end design goal of Strive was for the team. They wanted to take out a lot of things that veteran Guilty Gear players take for granted because we're so used to it that can feel very difficult to get into for new players. And they have definitely done that. There is a lot of stuff that very much goes against the past entirety of Guilty Gear's feel in terms of how it plays and how interactions work and what options you have. But on the other side of that, this is a very much double-edged sword, because Strive is definitely more simplified overall than Xrd or XX. The mechanics are definitely not as brutal to pick up, but at the same time, it still has very difficult to understand, like, fully grasp mechanics. Like, trying to understand wall HP in this game, you might as well go get a fucking PhD. It's very, very convoluted as to how much damage the wall has taken, because it's all based on how long you've been comboing someone, how long you've held them in the corner, etc. Like, good luck. Good luck figuring it out. It's so not nuanced. And the Roman cancel system, which I think is one of the highlights of Strive, the Roman cancel system is fantastic. It might be the most difficult Roman cancel system to use in Guilty Gear history, because you have so many different versions of so many different Roman cancels, and they all have extreme value in different situations, and some of them are hard to execute. Doing, like, blue Roman cancel jump fuzzy stuff is really hard to execute. I think that stuff is more difficult to do than doing, like, old FRCs in the XX series. So there's a give and take where Strive on the surface is a much easier game to wrap your head around, especially if you're a new Guilty Gear player, but there's a lot of complicated and nuanced stuff that's been added in that is still going to be very, prohibitive to learning the game at a higher level out of the gate. I also think the big thing is that while there were a lot more difficult and convoluted things you had to learn in, say, XX or Xrd, you also had so many options and so many ways to express your play style, your combos, your pressure, and all that, that you could have players of lower skill level find ways to push or even beat players who are very highly skilled, because you have so many ways to go about it. You have so many unique tools and so many ways to be creative that you can kind of circumvent that gap with that many options. I think in a game like Strive, that feels much more linear overall with what you can and can't do, means that if you want to beat a high-level opponent, you have to be playing that much better than them. Because there's not going to be a lot of ways for you to get super creative or super sneaky and try and steal a game off them by doing some crazy, Roman cancel setup from training mode or stuff like that, like you could in the older games. That said, the damage level in this game does make it so there's more ability to come back. It's easier to steal around, because if you counter hit someone after they've, blocked 3 moves and their wrist gauge is half full, you might kill them. So it's very come and go. I think Strive is a fine way to enter the series. I think Xrd and XX are also fine ways to enter the series, but the netcode being readily available and the general feeling of a more simplified game, I think, makes this probably the most approachable one. But I think that also comes with pitfalls in thinking that Strive is just flat out simpler and easier than the older games, and I don't actually think that's true. A lot of things are simpler to do. I think this game is still very hard to play well at a competitive level. You have to really be on your game in Strive. So, next question I have. What are your dream buffs for Anji? So I've talked about this on my stream a lot. People have asked me this question a lot. And the honest answer is, I really don't know how I want them to buff Anji. Dream buffs, I don't really want to say, like, my dream buffs, because, like, that would be a good way to just talk about how I can make my character stupid overpowered, and that's not going to be fun, because then everyone's going to cry for him to be nerfed. He's probably going to get nerfed. We go right back to where we started. But the things I would really like to see, as I've thought about it more in general, is the number one thing, and I've said this since week 1, I want this to be a commando. I want Far S to become Forward S, 6S. And I want close S to be a universal normal like it is in slash accent corn plus R. You can do this, this at any distance on the screen. So imagine being able to use 5S as a consistent anti-air or a consistent mid-range poke. Stuff like that. It's very strong. It's a very, very useful thing. I would love to see that come back. I think that has almost no chance of happening because I think they are very much married to the idea that characters' normals are mostly homogenized. They want everyone to have a close S and a far S. I think that's very much embedded in the design philosophy. But I would love to see it. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not. Next thing I think I would like to see the most is give back follow-ups on whiff for Fujin. In XX and Reload, as I talked about earlier, where Anji is not good, he's a very weak character, you could not do follow-ups on a whiff Fujin. If Fujin whiffs, sorry, you're eating the whole recovery and you got to sit there. In Guilty Gear Slash, the third version of XX, they made it so he could do all his follow-ups on whiffs. So if you're here and you whiff, you can hit punch and go into Fan Needles. You can slash forward with Nagiha. You could even throw out Reen at mid-screen and cover a bunch of ground or have someone jump into it, that kind of thing. I think that would help him a lot. Even if they left the frame data on all the Fujin follow-ups terrible, I think that alone would help him with being able to score more straight counter hits, which is what he excels at right now. And it would allow him more ways to play neutral than trying to rely on normals for neutral that are not that strong because of their overall slowness. The other thing I guess I'd really like to see is just general better frame data. I think Fujin being minus 16 is crazy, personally. It shouldn't be plus. I don't even think Fujin should be even. I just think it should be safe on block. Like something in the minus 5 to minus 7 or 8 range, I think is even acceptable. Because at least then the threat of delay is a little bit more real, and you could even potentially do stuff like Fujin, it gets blocked and you go into spin or something like that. So I think those are like my 3 realistic hope for changes, buffs for Anji. There's a lot of other things they could do. They could give him back some of his other old moves. They could make Butterfly not the slowest projectile in history, so it actually has some use outside of doing it on Oki after throw. Or just making that Oki actually feel like it has more options. That'd be kind of nice. Butterfly buffs would also be very welcome. But I think any combination of those would be a good start. I don't think Anji needs completely overhauled, and I don't think he needs a lot to be very, very competitive. If you're talking about making him on the same level as like Soul, yeah, he needs a lot of changes. He would need some pretty big buffs to get there. But I don't think he needs a lot to be a very competitive, I can get top 8s and tournament wins with this character consistently with a few changes. So, yeah. Next question. Why do you think they changed auto guard spin so opponents are now allowed to Roman cancel? This is a huge point of contingency for me in the first version of Strive. So the first thing I did back in in Open Beta Test 2 when they first released Anji, right? I'm like, I need to find out if someone triggers the auto guard spin by swinging into it, are they allowed to Roman cancel, get like a purple Roman cancel, and negate the whole penalty of swinging the auto guard? And in the Open Beta Test, if they swung into your auto guard, you couldn't Roman cancel. It was locked out. You had to eat the entire recovery of the move. And I was like, awesome. This move is not useless when someone has 50%. That is fantastic. And then they went and changed it for the launch, and now you can PRC on whiff. And it's like, but why? Why? Why did you do that? It really bothers me. It upset me a lot. I don't think that locking out Roman cancel for that is too harsh of a penalty. And you could make the counter argument that if you get someone to spin 50% meter because they swung into your auto guard that costs no meter, that's a net win. But if they throw you or punish you and you lose your turn, that's a big deal for Anji. So I don't know why they changed it. I'm not sure if maybe it was a bug and they didn't intend it to be that way and then they made it as intended. But I was very upset to find out that was one of the first things I'm like, please tell me this isn't real. Okay, awesome. They knew this would be a problem. And then release comes around and it was changed. And I'm like, well, damn it. So I don't know why they changed it. I wish they didn't. It feels bad. It feels real bad. So let's see here. Next question. How do you execute counter super reversal consistently? So, you know, Kacho Fugetsu, doing it on reversal. The reversal window in Strive is pretty tight. It's not easy to do consistently. But what I would do is, let me put on dummy information here. What I would do is just train a dummy and just practice is the first thing to do. So, like, just have the dummy knock you down and run up and do a meaty and just practice doing this over and over again. But more to the point, the number one thing I can suggest is if you're having problems getting this out is slow down your motion a little bit. It's really easy, especially on reversal. Your nerves are a little high. You're worried about not getting something out to try and go too fast and not get something to come out. It's, you know, then you get like an accidental up back, stuff like that, or you just get a far ass because you miss a corner. It's okay to slow your motion down. It really is. You can do this very slowly and have it still come out. This is something I'm super guilty of, not just in this game, but a lot of games, is trying to input motions too fast. And some of the best advice I ever got from my buddy Murphigator was try slowing down your inputs. It really will help you more consistently get out motions like the motion for Kacho Fugetsu. So try slowing down your input and have a dummy set up to knock you down and put you in a situation where they're going to hit you on the first frame when you wake up if you don't reversal. And that's probably the best way to practice. It's one of those things, reversals are not easy to hit in this game. It's going to take some time. You just gotta go in the lab and you gotta work on it, but definitely slow down your motion a little bit. That will help you get it more consistently. It can also help you develop a better timing window because once you know you can slow it down, you can go, okay, I'm halfway through my wake up animation and there, I've got it, kind of thing. So that's my advice. Let's see. How do you enforce pressure after a soft knockdown? So in this game, obviously, a lot of hits are soft knockdowns, right? Like we do blah, 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 Nagiha, very common B&B when there's no meter, you don't want to carry it in the wall or anything, you get a soft knockdown. The best way I can say to enforce pressure is you gotta have, it's a lot like every other situation with Anji, you kind of gotta have a read on your opponent. If your opponent's tendency is to kind of get up and block after soft knockdown because they're afraid, try to meaty with like far S or stand kick and, mix up between going into spin, mix up between going into Fujin again, stuff like that. If you're playing against someone who likes to jump as soon as they get up, run up and ko. The worst thing that happens is they don't jump, and they might be able to jump up and air throw you for a punish, but if they don't do that, they don't even get to punish you for just doing dash up ko, right? So soft knockdowns are very much like, yes, you are kind of at advantage, but you also are kind of playing a guessing game based on what your opponent wants to do. You have to watch out for them doing stuff like waking up and backdashing to make your meaties with, stuff like that. But just in general, chase them down a little bit and use your best guess on what do you think they're going to do, If you think they might try and play back at you and rush forward, throw out like stand heavy and see if they'll run into it and get counter hit, stuff like that. But, it's not a hard knockdown. You don't get to play real Oki. You have to make your best judgment. And the two best options you can really do are either forcing them to block a meaty on the ground or chasing them into the air with ko. So, depends entirely on the matchup and the player, but those are probably your two best options. Next question. How do you escape pressure? So this is kind of a loaded question, and this frankly probably could be its own entire video. But, sometimes you get in situations where you get in the corner and your opponent's spinning bar, especially if they have positive tension pulse and they just keep hammering on you because you keep getting meters, stuff like that. So the best way to get out of pressure, one, is remember that you have resources to do it. So like, let me record Anji to do, just something like that, an attempt to hold pressure in the corner, right? So, like, if I just sit here and just block, I'm not exactly getting out of dodge. I might have to try and jump, stuff like that. But you don't have to sit there and just normal block, right? You can do stuff. You have faultless defense. Never forget how much pushback faultless defense gives. this is an invaluable tool. A lot of new players think of Faultless Defense as just this thing to negate chip damage with, which that's a very important aspect of FD. It's very good. But Faultless Defense increases pushback a great deal. And a lot of strings, especially strings that don't have meter, you can push them out and then you can air dash out. You can get out of dodge. The other thing to remember is you have YRC if you have 50%. If you're not comfortable with what's going on, you're afraid you're going to get schmixed, you're not going to be able to get out, it's okay to spend 50% and just go, I'm done blocking right now. I want offensive advantage kind of thing. This YRC is especially good against Zato. Other characters, you know, depending on how their strings work and what they do, it's kind of debatable if you should spin that meter or not. Against Zato, if you have 50%, I almost universally feel like you should use YRC to get out. Because YRC, unlike the old games where we had what was called the dead angle attack, gets rid of Little Eddie and puts Zato in the YRC block stun. So it's incredibly good against Zato. But in general, you use your FD. Don't be afraid to use YRC. And don't be afraid to check things. There are no infinite strings in this game. Like, even characters with really good frames like Chip, they have gaps in their pressure and gaps that you can exploit. If you're wanting to try and interrupt, crouching punch. This is your interrupt button. It's our fastest button. It's 6 frames. It can't be ducked. It can't really be stopped when they're on the ground. If you think someone is trying to stagger pressure you or do something that isn't real, check them with this. Because at worst, if they block, you can go into like forward heavy and make them block a potential mix-up of you going into spin or Fujin, right? So those are, practice using those 3 things. Escaping pressure is a very loaded question because it depends on the matchup, you know, the amount of tension you have available, your burst situation, all that stuff. But in general, FD is very good. YRC is very good. And 2P to interrupt is very good. So use those to start. Learn where there's gaps and you can try and air dash out, or where you can double jump out, float with a jump D or something to throw off anti-air, stuff like that. So let's see, what else do we have here? When should I use what Oki option, and also how do you apply Butterfly Oki? So this probably will be its own video. I probably will do a video about Butterfly and Anji's general Okizeme down the road. But in general, for a basic, here's the easy answer. For my Salt, the only time you should really be looking for Butterfly is after throw. There are situations you'll see me do where I get like a knockdown in the corner where I don't want to break the wall, that I'll go into Butterfly because you have enough time to do it. But the vast majority of the time, this is the only place you should be looking to do Butterfly. Almost any other situation, if you get a knockdown, look to do OTG mix-ups into spin, especially in the corner, like in the crouching heavy OTG video I did. Or look to OTG them with Fujin Hop and do that Oki. Or just do a meaty on them. You know, meaty into strike throw kind of thing. That's another one of those, like, it depends entirely on the matchup, what the character has available at their disposal for resources and potential reversals, all that stuff. But if you want the very easy route to just understanding what your best Oki options are, you can pretty much forget about Butterfly except off of throw, and you're probably making okay decisions. I think most of the time, not using Butterfly unless you get a throw to set it up, or you get, like, you know, a 2D or a 2K into 2D, there's not a lot of good reason to force Butterfly. Butterfly just isn't that good in the game right now. So that'd be my answer to that. Let's see here. When you score a hit at max range that won't convert anything, what should you do? Okay. So this is referring to stuff like where you get like a far S that's not going to combo into Fujin, or a stand kick that's not going to combo into Fujin. And the general answer I have for this is that, unfortunately, your best option is doing Fujin or spin. That's really it. You can't do much else when you hit these things. Let me turn off counter hit. You know, if you hit this at max range, it's not going to combo. That's all there is to it. But you don't want to just give up your pressure either, right? You know, far S, you can't jump cancel it and air dash in. You can't combo into Fujin. You can't cancel into sweep. You know, you can cancel into 5H, which is all well and good, but Fujin doesn't reach. So, you know, if you don't have any meter to do something like this, and go in after them with a Roman cancel, you just kind of have to accept that your best options are either spinning in and seeing what they do, or going in with Fujin and going from there and seeing if you can catch them sleeping with a Fujin follow-up. It's another weak part of Anji's game, and it's another reason I really just don't like Far S, to be perfectly honest. The fact that this doesn't consistently combo to Fujin is a big problem. And it's more of a big problem because they let it combo to stand heavy, right? But stand heavy, a lot of the time at max range, either whiffs, but it also doesn't combo into Fujin because stand heavy no longer forces crouch. In the older games, in Plus R specifically, this move forces crouch on hit, which made it a lot easier to do stuff like do hard slash Fujin and combo into it. Doesn't do that anymore. It's unfortunate. This is one of those things like, these situations kind of feel bad. If you don't have meter to convert on this, you're basically just accepting that your options are canceling into a special, or that's it. You know, if your max range, 5K doesn't even reach with sweep, which also feels bad. So it's one of those things you have to accept. This is another kind of weaker part of Anji's game. So it is what it is, unfortunately. So yeah, that's all the questions I got so far. There were a couple other ones that are going to be pertained to bigger videos. I got quite a few questions about auto guard. The next guide I'm going to do is going to be on auto guard. That'll be out most likely this week. So I will do a whole guide explaining the ins and outs of auto guard and how to best use it, the pitfalls it has, all that good stuff. So you can expect that sometime this week most likely. And of course, some more match videos. I'll try and find another set worth doing commentated match videos with. I'm going to save those for sets that I really feel I can tell you guys useful information, stuff that goes for a while, how both players adapt. I don't want to try and commentate every single set, because a lot of times it's just going to be me telling you what's going on, and that it's stuff that even if you're not super familiar with the game yet, you can discern just from watching the game. So I'm going to save those for sets where I can really give you guys worthwhile commentary to do that. So yeah, that's all I got for now. If you want to see another QA video like this, let me know. I'm happy to put up more threads on Twitter or on the YouTube community thing and take questions and try and put these together every once in a while. I think in general, a lot of these are just stuff that I can answer when I'm streaming and stuff like that. But I figured I'd try this just to do a little bit different video and something kind of off the cuff. So hopefully this helped out. Thank you to all of you who offered up questions. I definitely appreciate it. If I didn't choose your question, like I said, it probably means I'm thinking of doing either a bigger video or it was a little too in-depth to do in this, like matchup-specific stuff. I'll definitely do more matchup-specific stuff down the line, especially when I commentate sets against various characters. So look forward to that. But as always, I appreciate all the feedback and interaction you all have given. It's really weird to have this much traffic on YouTube and have this many people watching the videos, but I definitely appreciate it. If you want to do the like and subscribe thing, cool. Again, this is just kind of a side thing I'm doing right now because I'm having a good time doing it. YouTube is not my job, and as much as my channel is growing, I don't suspect it's going to be able to replace my job streaming anytime soon, and probably never. So don't worry too much about me trying to chill YouTube stuff. If it happens, cool, but I'm not overly concerned about it. But that's all I got for now. Everyone, please take care, be good to each other, and I'll catch you on the next one. So have a good night.